secret emails you weren't supposed to see. The paper trail that reveals how results of drug trials were glossed over to cover up a link with suicide in teenagers.
I just couldn't believe that people could deliberately and willingly and knowingly do something like this to others.
Now GlaxoSmithKline faces trial for fraud. When you take your child to the doctor, you assume the medicine they're prescribed is safe and will help them get better. If your teenager is depressed, you certainly don't expect the drug they're given to make them want to kill themselves. But we've uncovered the story of how one company tried to hide the fact that its medicine did exactly that. Just watch this.
Malibu, California. It's not where you'd expect to unravel one of the biggest medical scandals of recent times. But that's exactly what this team of lawyers has managed to do. What they've found affects all of us here in the UK. Anyone, in fact, who takes prescription medicine.
It is all about the profits. Even when they have negative studies that show that this drug is going to harm kids, they still spin that study as remarkably effective and safe for children.
This apartment is crammed full of boxes containing a story that Britain's richest drug company has fought hard to suppress. There's an embarrassment of secrets here that GlaxoSmithKline really doesn't want you to see. And you're about to discover why.
So it's all stuff from the confidential GlaxoSmithKline archive?
Yeah, the internal documents, the emails back and forth, the decisions that they make from the bottom to the top.
These trade secrets are usually protected by law, but through a series of legal challenges, the lawyers have forced many of them into the open. Buried in all these boxes are details of a secret clinical trials programme that GlaxoSmithKline began over a decade ago for its antidepressant paroxetine. It's a drug that's better known in Britain by its brand name, Seroxat. It was hailed in the 90s as a wonder drug when it was launched as a rival to Prozac to treat depression and anxiety. GSK later promoted it as a cure for everything from stress to shyness. By the new millennium, 100 million Seroxat prescriptions had been written worldwide, bringing in $2 billion a year. With the adult market all sewn up, the company then looked for new ways to make money out of Seroxat.
If they tested Seroxat for children, they would get a 6-month extension on their patent, which means enormous profits. They would become the antidepressant being used worldwide for children and depression.
The documents in these boxes reveal how hundreds of children with depression were recruited from around the world to take part in 3 large-scale clinical trials of Seroxat. The biggest of these was in the US and came to be known as Study 329. Its influence would reach right across the Atlantic to British doctors looking for ways to treat depressed children.
She painted this when she was 16.
And this is Cherise.
That is Cherise, and I just love that painting.
6 years ago, Stephanie Gatchell took her daughter Cherise for a hospital appointment in Northamptonshire. Cherise hadn't yet started her periods and was worried about it.
During that consultation, she became a bit emotional. I was amazed. She started crying. And I clearly remember him asking her, Cherise, do you sometimes feel like ending it all? I couldn't believe it when she said, yes, I do. And then he started talking about Seroxat and suggesting that she try that.
Seroxat was only licensed for adults, but doctors can prescribe any medicine if they think it will help their patient. It's called off-label prescribing. And Cherise wasn't the only teenager getting Seroxat off-label. Around 7,000 children a year were on the drug in Britain alone. Within days of starting on Seroxat, Stephanie noticed a dramatic change in her daughter. She became more confident, but with it came aggression and worse.
One day in the kitchen, her sleeve pulled up slightly, and I noticed that there were cut marks on her left arm. God, I couldn't believe my eyes. She was obviously self-harming while she was on the Seroxat, something she's never ever done before.
Stephanie persuaded her daughter to stop taking Seroxat, but in 2003 Cherise went back on the drug without telling her mum. Her parents went away for the weekend, not realising she was taking Seroxat again.
The moment I walked into the house, I knew something was wrong. I ran upstairs before my husband came in, and the moment I got to the landing at the top, as I turned around and I looked, she was hanging. She was hanging from the loft hatch. I tried to revive her, but before I even started, I realized I was too late. I could see that. I could see it was too late, but she was still warm.
Next to her daughter's suicide note lay a packet of Seroxat. She instinctively blamed the drug, but she couldn't have known what its maker knew. The company had tested the drug on depressed children 6 years previously. One group took the drug, the other a placebo, sugar pills. The results were unexpected. Seroxat proved no better than the placebo. In one study, 7 of the 93 children who took Seroxat had to be taken to hospital. Some had self-harmed, like Cherise.
It should have been the time where they, at least by then, started warning physicians who were prescribing this drug off-label to stop prescribing it to children, because not only is it not effective, it's not safe.
There's no doubt the company knew it had a problem. The product director for Seroxat in the UK admitted as much in an internal memo to senior executives way back in 1998. It's one of dozens of emails and memos seen by Panorama.
The results of the studies were disappointing. The possibility of obtaining a safety statement from this data was considered, but rejected.
In other words, they knew they wouldn't get a children's licence.
The best which could have been achieved was a statement that, although safety data was reassuring, efficacy had not been demonstrated.
They hadn't even shown that the drug worked.
Consultation of the marketing teams confirmed that this would be unacceptable commercially.
Publishing the data in full would put profits at risk. But if they couldn't get a children's licence, could they find an unofficial way to market Seroxat for childhood depression? Exit the doctors, enter the spin doctors. They would help create a new story. Seroxat was safe, and it did work for teenagers. The inconvenient facts would be buried, and the marketing people would spread the good news to doctors around the world. Every stage in this cynical process is contained within these boxes.
They figured out ways that they could downplay the risks, blow up out of proportion the supposed benefits or the good sides of the study, and really downplay the negative findings.
The next step was to use apparently independent academics to help, like Professor Martin Keller. Head of psychiatry at a prestigious university, his name is worth a lot to companies like GSK.
They figured out, well, if we use opinion leaders in the field, academics that everybody looks up to, and the leaders in the field to sell our product, doctors are going to be far more influenced than by just regular sales representatives.
So just what qualities should a key opinion leader possess? Here's Professor Keller in his own words, giving video evidence to lawyers who are suing GSK.
You're respected for being a, an honorable person, and therefore when you give an opinion about something, people tend to listen and say, oh, this individual's gave their opinion, it's worth considering.
But how independent is he? In a single year, Martin Keller earned $500,000 from drug companies, including GSK. His name is at the head of GSK's Study 329, but how much input did he really have? In a memo, Dr. Keller thanks a ghostwriter for the initial preparation of the manuscript, a ghostwriter who works for a PR company hired by GSK.
You did a superb job with this. Thank you very much. It is excellent. Enclosed are some rather minor changes from me.
Here's another letter from the ghostwriter to Dr. Keller. It says that all the necessary materials are enclosed so that he can submit Study 329 for publication, even down to the covering letter, which says, please retype on your letterhead, revise as you wish.
Ghostwritten medical research like this is becoming a real problem.
If the people who originally designed the study, collected the data and analysed the data aren't involved in actually getting right through to the interpretation, there are all sorts of slips and manipulations that can happen at that stage, which I think have to be against the public interest.
So just how closely did the Honourable Professor Keller scrutinise the data in his own study?
I've reviewed data analytic tables. I don't recall how raw it was. The huge printouts that, that list items by item number, item numbers and variable numbers and don't even have words on them. I tend not to look at those. I do better with words than I do with symbols.
A telling phrase. And it's soon clear the PR woman is making crucial decisions about how to present the data. At one point, a GSK executive protests she's going too far in burying bad news.
It seems incongruous that we state it is safe, yet report so many serious adverse events.
There were actually 11 such side effects, including self-harm, aggression and suicidal thoughts. GSK suggests to the PR woman that she make clear Seroxat may have caused all of them. But how's this for spin? The final article says,
of the 11 patients, only headache, one patient, was considered to be related to the treatment.
The article never does explain how many children became suicidal or explore whether the drug was to blame. Instead, it concludes that Seroxat is generally well tolerated and effective. The next step in GSK's marketing plan was to get the study published. Doctors rely on medical journals to give them advice they can trust. The first journal GSK tried rejected the article, so they tried another.
We rank, and this is a worldwide ranking, we rank #1 in child mental health and #2 in pediatrics.
About as influential as GSK could hope for. But would the journal's reviewers spot the flaws in the study? Normally their deliberations are confidential, but we've seen what they thought of Study 329.
Overall, results do not clearly indicate efficacy. Authors need to clearly note this.
Another points out,
the relatively high rate of serious adverse effects was not addressed in the discussion.
And fundamentally poses the question,
given the high placebo response rate, are these drugs an acceptable first-line therapy for depressed teenagers?
I think it's fair to say that what happened here is one journal spotted the problems and rejected the paper. Another journal had peer reviewers who also spotted a number of the problems, but the paper was published nonetheless relatively unchanged. And I think the journal must take some responsibility for that.
Do you have no regrets about publishing the study?
Oh, I don't have any regrets about publishing at all. It generated all sorts of useful discussion, which is the purpose of a scholarly journal.